Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Farrell now, who's very kindly agreed to introduce the event for us. And Farrell is my manager at Age UK, so I'm really delighted that she's joined us today, and she was the person who sort of set the ball rolling really with Art by Post. So Farrell, I can't see you. There you are. So if you're ready, Farrell, we'd love to hear from you now, please.
Hello, hi everybody. It's so lovely to see everybody, and this really feels like a celebration today. Behind all of this event today has been hours and hours and months of work. So thank you to everyone who's been part of it that's joined us today. And for those of you who haven't been part of it, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the event and about the exhibition and about the projects that we've all been involved in. So this event today is all about celebration, really. It's very difficult to ignore how COVID has impacted all of us in such a negative way. All of our friends, our family, our communities have had so much upheaval and negativity and loss and despair in so many ways. However, there have been moments of magic. There have been those pockets of wonderful things that have happened that we don't want to lose hold of, that we want to make sure that we build on and that we recognise and we celebrate. And this is what we're doing today. So we will be looking at a number of projects that have happened locally, as well as trying to draw some of that learning together. So what I have done is, because I know I talk way too much, I have written something that I'm going to very quickly read and then hand back over to Helen. So for those of you who don't know me already, I'm Farrell. I'm Head of Cultural Partnerships at Age UK Oxfordshire, and I work alongside Helen. And Age UK Oxfordshire wants older people to achieve agency and equity of access to creativity and culture by 2025. And this means older people take the lead in everything we do. We have come on quite a journey these past 18 months, as have we all. And this project really feels like it has come full circle. I met Emma early in her new post leading health and wellbeing at the Southbank Centre at the beginning of lockdown. Emma was part of the non-digital working group I ran, and we'll talk about later. And when we met, it seemed like there was huge potential to link up, but it wasn't entirely sure, we weren't entirely sure how. Fast forward a few months and we were exploring how Southbank's postal project could help older people in lockdown. And a few weeks later, we were signed up as one of the delivery partners. Whiz passed through dozens of partnership meetings with dozens of partners, and now we can press pause to reflect on what really matters. The fact that older people and the wider community who have experienced huge challenges are front and centre stage in an amazing exhibition that's here in Banbury. We are dedicated to COVID recovery in our communities, focused on marginalised older people, and we take a place-based approach to achieve it. But behind the jargon is projects like this, and we are thrilled to have been a part of it. Thank you. Over to you, Helen.
Thanks, Farrell. That's got us off to a lovely start. Thank you very much, and lovely words. Thank you. So I should have mentioned before, actually, that we're going to be hearing from all our speakers, and then we're going to have a short break at about 3:10, and then there will be the opportunity for questions. But if anyone has a question they want to pop in the chat in the meantime while they think of it, that's absolutely fine, and I will keep an eye on the chat. We can come back to those questions when it's question time. But before we go any further, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, and we're really delighted to have Emma Nutland with us, who's from the Southbank Centre, sort of leading on the Art by Post project. And Emma, I'll just hand over to you, I think, and hear from you, and let me know if you would like me to start your presentation.
Thanks so much, Helen, and Farrell as well. It was lovely to reminisce 18 months ago, but lovely to be here this afternoon and just to celebrate this moment and look forward together with what's coming up as well and how we can keep working. I'm going to speak, so I'm the Arts and Wellbeing's, the Creative Learning Manager for Arts and Wellbeing, and as Farrell said, I just started this post 6 weeks before the first lockdown. So I hadn't really kind of got into the role or got used to the site at all by this stage. That sounds lovely. Sal, I think your mute. Okay, great. Thank you, Sal.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I'm
that sounded
sorry.
lovely. Thank you. So just to say that we're so excited that we've opened at Banbury Museum in the Mill this week, and we'll speak a bit about that and what's the legacy of the exhibition and kind of what we hope to it will grow out of the exhibition going on tour and starting at Banbury. And then I'm going to try and represent the brilliant team at the Southbank Centre behind Art by Post that aren't with me today on the call, and try and share collectively some of our moments of magic over this project. So really focus on those gems that try and kind of open out the project a bit more. But yes, so I think before we go there, I'd love to start with the film, Helen, I think, because that can encapsulate much better than me speaking for a while. And I'm also going to put a timer on because I have no concept of time. So you'll have to nudge me, Helen, if I'm going on. But yeah, we're going to start with a film which has been made by filmmaker Ed Prosser, and this is just to give you a little insight to two very different participant journeys during the project. Thank you, Helen.
No problem, Emma, and I'll let you know when your time is nearly up. Don't worry. Can I just check? Can everyone see that screen? And please give me a thumbs up if you can hear it as well.
Do you think art can save lives?
It certainly saved mine. It saved my life.
Art by Post changed my perception of art because I didn't think I was an artist until I started looking at what artists were doing. It gave me hope.
My name's Nina and I work in a care home. I'm an activity coordinator. I've never done such a job that I enjoy so much. And I mean, I've, done exciting things as a puppeteer. You've got people here 24/7 and they want something to do. And it's coming up with person-centred activities for the residents.
This is where it all happens. My shed is full of glass. I'm Amanda and we're in my shed. I used to make stained glass Victorian, Edwardian glass for people restore, repair. And it was a hobby, but I hadn't done anything for about 4 years because I've been abroad with my daughter. And then I came back for a month and I got stuck here. We went into lockdown. I couldn't go back to Singapore and here I was. I was absolutely gutted because all my family, they were on the other side of the world. I was here on my own thinking, how long is it going to be before I can go back? I didn't really know what I was going to do.
So take me back to sort of March, February last year.
So it was absolutely terrifying. We had one particular patient that came in. I think he was with us a few days and died. Then that resulted in, several staff being off. And, it didn't feel safe for us. So then it didn't feel safe for the residents. And I found it personally very traumatic. Everyone was doing their best.
I knew I had to create stuff to keep above water. So I got involved with the Art by Post project. Each leaflet was completely different. It would give you ideas of things to do. Look at your room from a different angle, draw a picture of it. Write a letter to a stranger telling them what you're doing and asking me to try things I would never have tried before.
They've employed some really diverse and eclectic group of artists to produce a monthly pamphlet, and they produce activities that I can then do with the residents.
They gave me thoughts, they gave me ideas that I could use. And then I came into the shed and started putting all these bits of broken glass together in a very untraditional way. Pieces of glass on the table were saying, put me in the panel, put me in the panel. I'll go with that, I fit with that. And before I knew it, I had all this collage of glass that I just needed to get out there.
I'm very interested in observing Pam's colouring, and I took her the You Exist poster. Honestly, I could cry looking at her colouring. She's done 2 letters at the end and then coloured round the edge. So just seeing how she approaches things, I think, has just really been quite humbling.
So this is the lockdown window. This is the window that the Art by Post project has really given birth to. This now is no longer the traditional craft of stained glass that I've been doing for years. This now is my art.
To bring something other to them, it's not knitting or, I mean, knitting's great, but, it's something out of the box, and it just triggers something. Their eyes bright up and they're kind of in the moment of what they're doing. So that was just magical.
Because I'm so happy with the art that I'm making, it's given me a confidence. I actually am comfortable now saying I'm a stained glass artist, which I would never have said. I feel like one now.
So why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. I'm Amanda, and I'm a stained glass artist.
One moment. Lovely to see so many great faces.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you everyone for bearing with that. I don't know if it was glitchy for everybody, but hopefully you still got the gist of the film. And if you'd like to watch the film again, it's on our website under Art by Post, and you can watch it at your own leisure. And there's also an audio description version of the film as well, which is wonderful. I feel like that gives a really lovely overview of the project in 2 really distinctive journeys. But I'm going to just kind of, like I say, share some other moments of magic with you, and if there's any questions at the end, that would be fine. So if we could have, lovely. So we've produced 11 booklets since May 2020, working with 17 different artists. Some of those artists were collectives, some of them were couples that were shielding together, and many of them were individuals that we were introduced through our delivery network, which Age UK Oxfordshire is one of our key 13 delivery partners. So my first magical moment I wanted to express was that this project had really modest aims of just reaching 300 people locally when we first went into lockdown, to extend a project where we were working with people living with dementia, living in the Lambeth and Southwark area. And we translated that, like so many other people, into a postal pack that was followed up with phone calls. But very quickly, other link workers and other dementia support workers said, we love what you're doing with one of my clients, can we extend that? And so we had an aim of reaching another 300 people. And then within a few days, we had thousands more people refer to the project. And you can refer yourself through the phone, online, you can be referred by a GP or a link worker or a family friend member. And yeah, very quickly we had 4,500 people receiving booklets every month. But at the same time, our organisation was obviously, like many other places, was going through large scale, like 90% of the organisation was furloughed, and later 2/3 of the organisation was made redundant. So we were really kind of working against very kind of adverse situations within the organisation, and this project simply wouldn't have happened without our network of delivery partners, because they were the on-the-ground experts in their areas, knowing that who needed, where the need was, and also like how best to kind of support that engagement. So this project is kind of, it's a small and mighty project. It's very simple in its essence, that we have worked with these incredible artists to create booklets that have been beautifully designed, and they are designed for anybody who was at further risk of social isolation or loneliness through the pandemic, so potentially already in that category and then further exacerbated by the pandemic. And the booklets followed a very simple structure of 3 to 4 exercises per booklet. These lights are going to keep going off because I'm not moving. I'll have to be more kind of dynamic in my presentation, otherwise the lights keep going off. So the booklets had about 3 to 4 different exercises, and we wanted it to feel like, as much as possible, like the artist was sitting there with you in the room and you were guided through that booklet with them. And this is one of my favourite booklets. This is a collaboration between a multimedia artist, Sherelle Sapperton, who has lots of experience working with older people. I should say as well, this project was open to anybody over the age of 18. So we actually had a lot of people in the kind of 20 to 40 age bracket, that much more than we originally expected, but predominantly most of our participants would be classified as older adults. And these booklets were reaching on a regular basis hospitals, as we'll hear from Angela later, care homes, day centres, lots of different places where people were being kind of collectively supported and cared for. But if we could just go back, sorry, Helen, to Barbara and Sherelle's booklet. This is a magic moment for me, because Barbara was attending some of our in-person exhibitions at the Southbank Centre before the pandemic, and when we started moving over to by post or delivery, it was lovely for Barbara to receive this yellow envelope every month with a booklet in, and it, you know, all the feelings of feeling kind of like seen and remembered were very much there, but it was so hard to motivate to actually, you know, take part in the exercises, which I think is a barrier that I certainly would face, and I think many people that we were reaching were facing. And it takes a lot of courage to start to try something new, and that's something that is a theme across all of the booklets. It really was an invitation to be bold, to be brave, to meet an artist, to talk about a practice that was maybe completely different to any other creative workshop you tried. So Barbara told me that the one thing that she had been getting from the Art by Post project was she'd reconnected with her record collection, and hadn't listened to music for about 20 years, and now all of a sudden there was records everywhere. So I was like, brilliant, that's an amazing outcome. Do you think we can support other people to try and kind of tap into some of the potential in their living room? And so we paired up Barbara and Sherelle, and the lovely dynamic between the two was they wanted to focus on the importance of the West Indian front room, and that, you know, a space which had many dimensions. At some points was presenting to everyone, you know, any guest, just kind of it was the best room in the house. And then on the other hand, the room could, you know, also transport to kind of a place to dance in, to listen to music, to reflect in, and the kind of the versatility of this space. So Sherelle and Barbara worked together to kind of open out people's living rooms and to dance together, and to also turn it into a creative studio. And people sent lots of brilliant responses to us where they'd moved an armchair to a completely different place for the first time in 40 years. And then they described to us the new view from that armchair. And like, these are very small acts, but real radical acts. And like during that time where we were really not able to be with the people. And I think we can't underestimate how important dragging that chair to a new place is for somebody. So that's one of my moments of magic, because it was just a fantastic intergenerational collaboration between Sherelle and Barbara. Thank you, Helen. How are we doing for time? Am I already well over? No, I'm okay.
Okay, you've got a couple more minutes, Emma. Yeah.
Right, I'll fly through a few more magical moments. So every booklet was received the free post envelope, and like you saw from the film, we received 800 pieces of artwork back. These are just some of the kind of, the different kind of, got bunting back, we've got paintings, we've got poetry. I would be called up sometimes and just somebody wanted to perform a poem to me over the phone. This is a magical moment from my manager, Jessica Santa, who's head of creative learning. And Jessica, all the free post envelopes were diverted to Jessica's home, because very early in the lockdown, we realised she had the biggest letterbox, but we didn't ever expect sacks and sacks of things to be delivered. And I just think this is a great interpretation of an exercise, which was asked to fill a heart with all the things that you love. And instead, we got this fantastic kind of personal ad, which was just kind of, we received lots of things like this, and it's just these little moments of connection. And I think it just brought a lot of us, lots of us joy reading this. And I think it's important to say that with everything going on in the climate of culture and care and everything that we are still going through, this project has been a lifeline for the staff team to be able to have these moments of connection and meet new partners and meet such incredible artists, but most importantly, have participants calling us on a daily basis to just tell us what they've made and what they think. So this is a moment of magic from Philippa, who's the Arts and Wellbeing Communities Coordinator and is really hands-on with a lot of the participants. And it's just this end of the text message she received after one of our on-the-phone workshops. And I just really like this. Thank you, and thank you, Tim. I've only listened to jam sessions and never thought I would be part of one. And this was a really ambitious music-making session over the telephone with Tim Steiner from the Here and Now project, from the Philharmonia Orchestra, one of also our delivery partners. I'll zoom on through. Thank you, Helen. So this is a huge magical moment for us in the Art Post team, because this was our exhibition in situ at the Southbank Centre on the 20th of September. And this is representing Alexandra Briley, who's Director of Creative Learning, and also our curator of the exhibition, Priscilla Caton, who has just recently installed a smaller version of this in Banbury Museum in the Mill. And I'm just going to zoom to the next slide. So this is one of the pieces that I'm not sure is in situ at Banbury, but it's the Hope Tapestry, and it's so hard. How do you consolidate 800 pieces of artwork into an exhibition that doesn't feel like room after room after room of like the summer exhibition? Instead, it feels like you're part of something. You're invited into a community, and you're invited to listen, to sit still, to reflect. And this is kind of, we call it like the tea towel, like the kind of the classic tea towel that you used to have at school. But instead, these are some of the amazing kind of portraits, some of the hearts we received, some of the alternative portraits, self-portraits that people drew, and in the kind of representing the NHS rainbow of hope as well. Moving on to other aspects of the exhibition, and parts of these are all represented on tour, and you'll see parts of this there's definitely the making space in the last slide, where we invite people to write a postcard that we are sending back to people who can't make the exhibition in person. So we have thousands of people who have taken part in the project but will never see the artwork. Every single piece of artwork we've received is online as well, on the online gallery, but again, that's still not reaching everybody. One of the ways that we tried to reach people was through our doorstep photography projects. I'm not allowed to mention any of our participants' names, but this is a wonderful participant who travelled from far to join our family and friends event, and was, so delighted to see her photograph that was one of our plinths on the outside of the Southbank Centre. And it was a really magical moment for Scarlett, who's our touring manager, who some of you may meet over the tour. And this participant, and we actually, so I should say that Helen and Farrell had I remember when we talked about participant numbers in the Banbury area, and we were like, let's keep it quite low, and I think we aimed for under 100. And Helen put some feelers out, and within a couple of days, we nearly had 200 people signed up, and consistently through this project. And some of the participants that were signed up, sorry, if we can just go back to the last slide, I promise I'll nip it in the bud after this. I just wanted to end with this slide, which is one of my magical moments, because it definitely features somebody from Oxford area. this was, we wanted to raise the profile of the work and the power of art in communities, and the power of people who are often hidden, and people whose perspective and time during this pandemic and prior and probably post will still be hidden. And so this national billboard campaign was on bus stops, was on billboards, and this was one that got some graffiti, and you'll see any kind of white bit of space has been graffitied, including the word hero alongside next to, again, I can't mention names, our lovely nurse here, and then just the kind of the crown on the dog. And it's just this kind of like that kind of public awareness of the things and the possibilities and potential behind closed doors. And I think that's something that I'd just like to end on, is that this is a project that we are committed to, and we will keep, and it's really great to be here to then keep these conversations alive, but they have to be led by the participants. They have to be led from the moment people receive something through their letterbox, because there is always going to be such a huge audience of people who will not walk through art centres doors or library doors. And I think Art by Post, you know, is such a simple idea, and the reason it's had this lift is because of we've all understood the definition of isolation and loneliness in different ways, and it's given a platform for this work to kind of keep developing. All of our booklets are available online with a free download. If you ever wanted any paper copies, you can just let me know and I can send some additional copies. And there's also audio descriptions with the artist taking you through the booklets online as well. And I'm well over time, but I just wanted to say thank you so much, Helen and Farrell, for your support in bringing this to Oxfordshire as well. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Emma. That was brilliant. And yeah, lots of magic moments there. Thanks for sharing that with us. It was lovely. And sorry for the technical glitch. I think that was at my end. So really sorry about that. So lovely. Thanks, Emma. And I'm sure there'll be questions for you later on. But in the meantime, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Francesca. And Francesca is from the National Academy for Social Prescribing and works in the Thriving Communities project. So Francesca, can I hand over to you and I will begin your presentation?
Yeah, go for it. So I haven't done a huge amount of work on the Art by Post exhibition, but I was one of the people that before I joined NASP during lockdown, I wasn't isolated like with my family, but you know, various needs just meant that it was challenging, and I signed up for Art by Post. So every month I used to get the yellow envelopes through and kind of look forward to doing the activities. I didn't send anything off, actually. I could have been in an exhibition, but I kept it all for myself. So when I joined NAS back in February, and then we kind of started working this campaign, I was like, I recognise those, like I like those. So when I came to the launch at the Southbank Centre, it was just wonderful to kind of see that thread, really. So just speaking a little bit about social prescribing, I'm going to start with this real overview. So as we all know, there is so much more to health than an absence of disease, and that's what the World Health Organization say. There's social, emotional and physical well-being, and all of those things come together and into play. We know that, you know, when our environment isn't great, when our relationships aren't good, things are hard at home, if we're struggling with money, it has an impact on our health and well-being. And that's not only our health in sort of, you know, how we feel that day, like our mood, it can have a real physical and mental impact. They estimate that around 1 in 5 GP appointments are about wider social needs. So they're not acute medical issues. You know, you don't need to go to A&E or anything like that. It is much more just that that there are underlying things that are causing a health condition, or even that people just don't know where to go, and their GP is a sort of trusted advisor that they can talk to. And this increases in areas of high deprivation. So many GPs report that, you know, when there's lots of social inequalities, they actually spend a lot of time dealing with consequences of things like poor housing, debt, stress and loneliness. So there's a real need for social prescribing. And what social prescribing is, it gives clinicians more time to, or at least aims to give clinicians more time to spend with patients who have complex medical needs, to sort of remove their need there. Link workers have a lot of time. Well, I say a lot of time. They spend more time with people. They form those relationships rather than a sort of 10-minute appointment. It improves health and well-being of people facing social and emotional issues, and it helps strengthen community resilience because it brings people together. It connects them what's in their community. It enables them to find community support, and we find that some of the real impact is not, you know, you spend 6 weeks, I don't know, going to walking football or, you know, joining a group or something. It's actually then they form friendships and they go out afterwards and they, you know, meet for coffee. So after the social prescribing sort of program and plan is over, there's a real long-term impact. So basically it is about connecting people to practical and emotional community support using social prescribing link workers who are based in GP practices and take referrals from all their local agencies. And as I said, they have the time to build trusting relationships. And really, they start with that one core message of what matters to you, what is important to you. And they look for the resources, the plans, the community support that can help them achieve that. It's not whilst we say prescribing, I feel like the sort of term prescribing feels very much to me like I go to someone, they're the expert, they tell me, and I do that. I just follow that plan. Where this is much more a collaborative thing. It is much more listening to people and that kind of conversation that keeps going. And, you know, if something's not working, it's not, well, we signed your prescription 6 weeks ago, that conversation keeps happening. It covers 4 pillars. So physical activity, nature and green space, arts, culture and heritage, and financial wellbeing. And it's basically about finding kind of community support that's usually done through VCSE organisations who can help connect people to those different areas. I'm actually finding that a lot of things cross over. So there might just be sort of arts activities in parks and things like that. So NASP, so we were launched in October 2019. It's just coming up to our 2nd birthday. And basically we're all about advancing social prescribing. We want to promote social prescribing, we want to collaborate with partners, and we want to innovate and really push it forwards. And a lot of what we're doing is building partnerships and really championing what local communities are doing and connecting people for wellbeing. And I was saying earlier, you know, that we're not just an organisation that sort of sits in this high level. We're really about kind of bringing along everyone with us and kind of, you know, engaging with the local communities. So our work, and my particular work, because I'm the media lead, is about making some noise, so really raising the profile, telling people about it, and supporting organisations to do that. We work with national, regional and local leaders, and we're investing directly in social prescribing through our Thriving Communities Fund. We help people build relationships and sort of broker those relationships. At the moment, we're working very heavily on improving the evidence. Like, we know it works, but where's the evidence? Where are the stats there? And we're developing libraries and resources, including our 5,000 strong now network of different VCSE organisations, so we can sort of start to share good practice. You can share what's working. So we do this through ambassadors. We've got some high profile people spreading the word, through Thriving Communities, which is our fund, our network, our webinars and learning together. We've got an academic partnership. We work globally now, which is really exciting. We launched our global playbook earlier in the year. Clinical champions across the professionals, and our support program called the Innovation Accelerator. So it's really broad, but as we said, it's really about sort of just amplifying the message, supporting people to do the great work that many of them have been doing for many years anyway. And we're really excited for Art by Post to come through and really link up with lots of the communities we've been working in. So as you said, sort of Thriving Communities is our flagship program that brings together all the different groups working over the UK to sort of share their work. And then next slide, I think. Oh yes, I have to say, we work with Arts Council England, Historic England, Money and Pensions, Natural England, NHS charities together, NHS England Improvement and Sport England, who are very, very supportive and brilliant. And earlier this year, we launched the Thriving Communities Fund. So I think it was just under 1.8 million, 37 funded projects. And we'll be reaching 10,000 participants through 1,700 activities across the field of what I was saying earlier about arts and culture, green space, physical activity, financial advice. Yes, you've heard about the project. I don't need to say about that, but I guess just what we found really sort of profound and why we're so proud to support it is it really tackles that loneliness and isolation. And as we're saying, social prescribing is about connecting people. It is about building a community. And it was a really nice way of addressing the digital divide, because for many of us, like, okay, lockdown, I'll jump on a Zoom call, fine, but that's not the case for everyone. So it's a great opportunity to do that. It was about community, it's about connection and creativity. And if you want to find out any more about us, yeah, our Social Prescribing Academy, I'm francesca.baker@nasp.info, and that's our social media. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Francesca, and thanks for bearing with my slide changes.
It was like racing a little bit. It's fine.
Great. That was a really good sort of overview, actually, for all of us for social prescribing, because it's questions we get asked about. You know, we get asked about it quite a lot, so that's really helpful. Thank you, and I'm sure there'll be some more questions for you later. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on now to our next speaker, which is Farrell. So Farrell, can I hand over to you to talk about our Age UK Oxfordshire Creative Challenge packs, please?
Hello, me again. So I'm not going to introduce myself again, but what I am going to say is at Age UK Oxfordshire, we think of ourselves as a national exemplar of best practice. So we really try hard to try new things, be innovative, take some risks. And then we share our learning across the Age UK network, which has 135 other local Age UKs. And we also try to help those organisations who are trying to work with older people but might not already have that kind of expertise. So I think I've got 5 minutes and 1 slide. So I'm going to try and keep to 4 minutes in case I've already gone over. I'm going to look at 2 minutes of what we did in lockdown and then 2 minutes of kind of magical moments, what we learned and what we want to take through. So for my 2 minutes, I'm going to focus on 3 projects. The first of which is this Creative Challenge pack, which is along the same lines as our by post, however, a much more simplified local version. I'm going to look at our non-digital working group that we supported nationally, and also the Age UK Oxfordshire Poetry Club, which happened locally too. So in March 2020, that was the stage in which we were all reimagining our work, which is a kind way of saying panicking and worrying about how we were going to help the older people that we had already tried to find funding to support lots of different amazing projects, and all of a sudden everything came to a stop and we had to somehow make things work in an entirely different context. In April 2020, I did a call out across the country through networks to find out who was already doing stuff around creativity with, for and by older people, so that I could kind of start collecting ideas and sharing things nationally so that we didn't have to try and reinvent the wheel. And when I did that, I got absolutely hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different ideas. The creative and cultural sector had already overnight developed new things and new ways of working, which was extraordinary. However, when I did a call out for non-digital activities and opportunities, the world went silent. I literally had nobody reply to me at that point. So it was obvious that something really needed to be done, and this is where some of this work came from. So in May 2020, we started to explore creative packs, and it's very much the same idea and ambition that the Art by Post project had, however, on a kind of micro level, very much in Oxfordshire. The idea being that we had 3 things in our pack. We had a pack for creative activity, which was 31 creative activities, 1 for each day of the month. We had a reading for pleasure pack for people who perhaps weren't able to get to a local library or to a bookshop. We also had the poetry pack, which was a project we'd already done before lockdown with older people who had taken part in a poetry project. And then we asked them what they would say to inspire another older person who'd never taken part before. And we packaged that all up. I say I did, it was Helen who did it en masse at home, and took hours and hours and hours of her time, lovingly put together. And it was sent to 1,000 people across Oxfordshire that we know who were high levels of isolation and loneliness. So in June, once we'd kind of got our packs out, we realised that there were lots of people who were in the space of non-digital who were really desperately trying to make it work. We knew how hard it was because we'd done it, and we knew that all the printers were shut. We knew that people were frightened of opening envelopes because we weren't sure if COVID was possible on paper. So we knew that all of these kind of safety risk assessments were going on. We also knew that, much like Emma said before, with people going on furlough, sadly being made redundant, all of those things, people were just sort of dropping away, and we really wanted to support as many of the people who were still out there to connect with their creative practice and get it out there for older people. So we set up the non-digital working group. It's about 25, 30 partners who came together to share information and advice with each other and just really give some moral support and some practical advice. So fast forward then, once we'd done some of that work, to November of last year. And what we tried to do was look at extending the creative pack. So for those who'd had that pack or who were interested, the poetry element of it, we turned into the Age UK Oxfordshire Poetry Club, which is a blended approach, so online and offline, specifically for those older people who perhaps weren't able to get out, to connect with each other through poetry. So that's my hopefully 2 minutes of what we did in lockdown. So the 2 minutes of joy. So I want to just focus on 3 elements, and I've written them down, of the power of co-production, the power of partnerships, and the power of community. So I want to give a little example for each. So the power of co-production. The reason why I've included the poetry project here is because one very specific example that I want to share today. So I didn't take part in all of the sessions, however, I did go along to the very first session and then kind of towards the middle end of the project. And to start, there's a participant who I can't name who hadn't really spoken to anybody for quite a few months, had come to the project and was lacking all sense of connection to the community, lost all of her confidence. And when we went round the virtual room and asked everyone to say their name and a little bit about themselves, she literally said her name and said, "I haven't got anything else to say. I haven't done anything. I don't know what else to say." And then she sort of turned the screen off and said, "I'm listening, but I don't want to be on the screen." And so it was a stark reminder that people really were out there trying to connect and feeling really alone, quite honestly. So fast forward then to a few months later, and I came back onto the screen to see the participant amongst many of the others reading her own poetry, which was fantastic, to the rest of the group. To see that transformation, to see people come together because of a creative purpose. She wasn't there because she was lonely. She wasn't there because she was isolated. She was there because she loved poetry and she wanted to talk to other people about that. And giving people that sense of connection through the purpose of positivity and that co-production of designing the space that they wanted themselves to feel confident in was just incredible. So the power of community. I want to just rewind to the packs. And the fact that we had to work with so many people at grassroots level to make this happen. And without the people across the community who really understand who's there, who's living in what street and who needs what, we would never have got those packs to the right people. And the power of partnerships, generous partnerships. We say this word all the time, but I don't think that we exhibited anything like generous partnership as we did during COVID. We just couldn't have done anything without the power of other people supporting us. And those are the 3 elements that I really, really want to take forward as our moments of magic. So co-production, community and partnerships, and that we never forget how powerful that is. So I'm going to hand back because I'm sure that those 3 things are things that are going to come out in all of the other projects today. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Farrell. That was brilliant and brought back some lovely memories for me of delivering those packs and packing them up. That was I actually really enjoyed it. It was great to have that task during the lockdown. So lovely. Thank you very much. We're going to move quickly now to Emma. Emma's from the Mill Arts Centre. Are you there, Emma? And you're going to talk about the Culture Club, the Mill project, which we worked in partnership on, actually, didn't we, with Age UK? So Emma, where are you? Hello.
Great, thanks Helen. Hello everyone. So I'm Emma, I'm the Programme Manager at the Mill Arts Centre. We're a mixed arts venue based in Banbury, and our remit covers both Banbury and Bicester. We're really excited to be be one of the hosting venues for the Art by Post project on its tour, and to be teaming up with Banbury Museum as well. One of our aims is to give people the opportunity to see and do amazing things at our venue, and in doing means making sure that art is accessible for everyone. And we think Art by Post achieves this beautifully, and we're so happy to support the project and celebrate it beyond its life at the Southbank Centre. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about one of the projects we ran in partnership with Age UK Oxfordshire back in March this year, called Culture Club. So in January, we launched a series of online visual art workshops as part of our regular creative learning programme, which I was discussing in a catch-up with Helen. And Helen had identified through conversations she'd been having with some of her users that there was a need for a similar offer for older people who'd become isolated in their homes as a result of the pandemic. So she asked if we would work with Age UK Oxfordshire to help develop and pilot a creative online offer that was tailored for this group. And then Culture Club was born. So Culture Club consisted of 2 6-week programmes, one in art and one in dance, which was all run via Zoom. The sessions were free, and all materials would be provided by post, or in our case, mainly by hand delivery, delivered by Helen herself. It was amazing, and getting all the materials together and actually going to everyone's houses to make sure they were delivered to everyone in time for the sessions to start. We worked with local dance practitioners and artists to develop the course content, and on the slide you can see here today, you can see the feedback from the participants and an image from the art sessions. So like the Art by Post project, Culture Club gave people the opportunity to be creative, try something new and different, and allowed us as a venue to reach out and connect with people and help to build a sense of community during a time that was really challenging and really, really dark. As an organisation, the project also allowed us to review our current offer and use our learnings from this project to continue to develop our courses online and in person for older people, and work towards being an age-friendly venue. So one of the things that we're looking to develop our offer now is to actually look at, and something that Farrell mentioned about looking at a blended approach to our offer, so that we have similar courses that are continuing, which we can deliver online and in person. So one moment of magic that I wanted to sort of talk about, which was a really inspiring moment for us actually, which comes from one of our online workshops that we launched back in January, was one of our students who had attended all of our online courses. So I wanted to particularly have a conversation with her just to sort of gauge her feedback and see why she attended the courses and what she'd got from them. And what she told me was that she was so inspired by attending our online visual art workshops that it inspired her to start creating online art sessions with her grandchildren during lockdown, and it helped her to stay connected with her family, and she developed it into a project so that she could help them to express how they were feeling through art. So it sort of became this intergenerational thing that she took upon herself to make sure she could stay connected with her family. And I just thought it was really, really lovely to show the impact of what our offers are doing, what the offer was doing during this time. And actually a lot of the work that her grandchildren had created, then she used to create cards, which she then shared with the rest of her family, and for pictured wall hangings to go up in her house as well, so she could continue enjoying that through lockdown. So that's the majority about Culture Club and our input with Art by Post project. Unfortunately, I am going to have to run off for a meeting at 3 o'clock, so I won't be here for any of the Q&As. However, Helen was very much involved with delivering the Culture Club project with me, so I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any questions about that if there are any. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma. That was brilliant. And yes, I've got lots of happy memories from that project as well. I'll be happy to answer questions. So
Hello, my name's Angela Conlon and I'm the Arts Coordinator for Creating with Care, which is part of Oxford Health Arts Partnership for Oxford Health Foundation Trust. My role as Arts Coordinator covers 6 community hospitals and 8 wards across Oxfordshire. When we went into lockdown, all of our arts groups and sessions were cancelled. I was redeployed to help with virtual visits for patients, which consisted of holding up an iPad and connecting people with their relatives at home. I was also involved in developing a care pack for staff who were finding it difficult to get things like toiletries and groceries when they were working long shifts and the shops were shut. After the first lockdown had eased, we were able to start delivering one-to-one art sessions with patients. We also had some concerts in our gardens and were able to bring virtual visits from artists to the wards. This also brought about a time where we had more volunteers coming back to work or starting after the national call out for volunteers for the NHS. And they were able to help me work with patients on the ward. So when Art by Post came about, this was great. We snapped it up. We thought our volunteers could use this as a conversation starter with our patients. It also provided time out for staff. We included it in art carts that we had placed on each ward, which were a resource for staff to give to patients who were bored or needed something to do, and they were a variety of different individual arts packs, which included knitting and craft and the Art by Post booklets, so that staff could give them out at any time of night or day. One of the booklets that I particularly liked and used time and time again was one which was entitled Are We Listening? And this helped us create a playlist for patients for their hospital stay. So patients were encouraged to think about the music that they liked and for different moods and different feelings. And we used that playlist, and we put some playlists together for patients as well. As you can see, we were very inspired by nature, and I think one of the booklets was about finding things of beauty, and here's some of the inspiration that patients drew upon. I did a lot of running outside to the gardens to collect leaves and flowers and take photographs of things outdoors for us to be inspired by. We were really lucky to be involved in the photography for the billboard campaign, and some of our members of staff who'd taken part in the Art by Post project spent a morning being photographed by a professional photographer. And the outcome of that has been, as you can see, we have one of our members of staff here was part of a billboard campaign for the Art by Post project across the country, which is wonderful to see. And as Emma mentioned earlier, the graffiti of the word hero along the side is wonderful. We also enjoyed Home is Where the Heart Is, which was one of the booklets as a starting point for dance sessions. So our magic moments are definitely when we have patients who say they haven't done any artwork at all since they were at school or a child, and they come and get inspired while they're in hospital, and it's something that they can continue when they leave hospital and go back to their homes or their care home. And we've had some wonderful letters saying thank you for inspiring me to take up this art form. Thank you.
We're going to go to our next speakers. We've got Carey Morley next, and Carey works at Banbury Museum and runs a reminiscence group there. Are you there, Carey?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, hi Carey, lovely to see you. Off you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Kerry. I work at Banbury Museum and Gallery, and I'm the Reminiscence and Outreach Coordinator. And I'm delighted to be able to showcase our Reminiscence newsletter that you can see here, with a compilation of just a few things that have been showcased in our newsletter over the last 12 months that we developed. But before I talk about some of these, which are my moments of magic, I just want to give you a little bit of background into how this has all come about. Banbury Museum embraced Reminiscence over 14 years ago, when it started with a single session to see how it would go. And it quickly grew from that. And a group developed, a reminiscence group at the museum called Times Gone By. And it was really successful. And after a few years, we started a second group. So these groups were to cater for the older people in the community. So our second group was quite away from Banbury, about 12 miles or so, in a village called Kidlington, which is near Oxford. And so by starting the second group, we were able to access the community and offer them, the older people in that community, the opportunity to take part in this reminiscence activity. So our aim for our reminiscence groups has always been to offer an opportunity for older people in the community to share their ideas and their suggestions. And wherever possible, we've tried to allow those ideas to become activities for people to take part in. And also we've tried to keep older people in the community connected to other areas of the community. So perhaps with school children or residents of care homes or artists that are making pieces of public art. Lots of different projects that are going on, and we've been able to connect the older people and give them more opportunities to share their life experiences, their memories, their stories, and add value. And so, of course, all of this kind of work involves getting together, being close to other people, taking part in collective group activities. And like everybody else, in March last year, it all had to come to a halt, which confronted us and gave us the biggest challenge about how do we continue. So I was put on furlough for a couple of months, which gave me a bit of thinking time. And during that time, as has already been mentioned, I became very aware of the digital divide. As I looked at the details of contact details of both of our groups, which combined was about 80 people, members of our two groups, I realised that a majority of them didn't have access to the internet. So how were we going to keep everybody connected? So we came up with the idea of a reminiscence newsletter. So each group would have had a programme of subjects that they were going to explore throughout 2020, one a month for each group. And we wanted to be able to continue to offer those two groups the opportunity to explore those subjects, even though they weren't going to be able to discuss them. So we made them into features and put them into a newsletter. So it isn't a newsletter in the normal sense, because there's lots of organisations out there who were providing information for people who were isolated to deal with their everyday needs. This was an opportunity for people to continue to share their memories and their stories and stay connected to each other. So it was a platform, really, a reminiscence platform. So we did have two sides to it. One was a digital, where people would receive the newsletter or send contributions for the newsletter via email, or the other was by post, or delivery. And quite a lot of that was my time was spent going and delivering through letterboxes our newsletter. We found a printer that was still available to print good quality hard copies of our newsletter, which catered for both groups. So part of the newsletter was for our Banbury group, the other part of the newsletter was for our Kidlington group. And this was an added extra that started to develop, where the Banbury members would be finding out and hearing about and reading about what the Kidlington members remembered, or some of their experiences, and the same for the Kidlington members. To the point where some of the Banbury members, when they could get out, actually went down to Kidlington to explore some of the places that they'd seen in the newsletter and read about. So it was a really successful way of keeping people connected. So on this screen here is some of the magical moments where contributions that were sent in by some of the members who had only really recently joined our group before we closed. So although I know everybody's front door, I'm still not really familiar with everybody's faces, because we had quite an influx of new people come at the beginning of 2020. So it was really lovely to start receiving some contributions from some of the people that I didn't really know, because I've got to know a lot of the members really well. And also it generated some brilliant poetry. A couple of the booklets, particularly the sports booklet, generated poetry from people that I thought I knew quite well. Never thought they'd write some brilliant poetry, but they did. So that was really wonderful to see. A bit like down at the Southbank Centre, receiving some of these contributions was really brought a smile to my face. It was really uplifting. And I do think that when people saw and read some of the contributions, it did encourage them to then contribute themselves. So it had a wonderful way of keeping everyone connected. I know a lot of the hard copies got passed on to neighbours and friends. Some of the PDFs that went out via email got emailed to friends, people around the world who were contacts with some of our members who perhaps had lived here and moved away. And so our distribution, our coverage increased as the newsletter went out each month, which was fabulous. And we would get information back from people to let us know where it was going, lovely contributions from people who'd received it and how much it had meant to them. And so this linked in brilliantly when we didn't join the Art by Post project at the beginning. I think I was on furlough when it first started. But once we got this newsletter going, Helen put us in, gave us information about this project and said, you know, I think it would be a good project. Why don't you have a look? And it dovetailed brilliantly into what we were doing with this newsletter. So as the newsletter went out, it was great that we had really good quality printed copies of the Art by Post booklets that we could also give out to people. And it gave them, a different dimension from the newsletter, something else to focus on, to encourage their creativity, and also, as a result, improve their well-being. So yeah, that's really that's how our newsletter and the Art by Post, I think, worked together during the pandemic, the lockdowns, to keep all of our people connected, and also increase our membership, because we've now got people who've seen the newsletter who want to come back to want to start at our group and come back as a new member, which is great.
Thank you, Carrie, and how lovely to hear, you know, some of the positives that came out of that difficult time, really, positive outcomes, and brilliant as well that you were able to pick up on the Art by Post opportunity and combine it with what you were already doing, just to add a bit of value. So that's lovely. And of course, you've got part of the exhibition at Banbury Museum, and some of the local people's contributions are there, which we had a quick look at yesterday, didn't we? So thank you so much, Carrie. That was brilliant. We're going to move on to our next speaker now, who I hope is out there somewhere. B, are you still there? B,
I'm still there.
Hello, B.
Hi there.
Brilliant. Well, we're really good to hear from you, and we're going to hear about your lockdown art group. But I should also introduce you as the coordinator for the Age Friendly Banbury project, which is a really important project as well. So over to you, Bea.
Oh, thank you very much. And I can thoroughly endorse the pleasure that people have had from reading Carey's newsletter, and I know that I've had it through different channels and passed it on through different channels, and it's well respected and an absolutely brilliant resource. So well done, Carey, and everybody who helps you with that. Thanks for having me on today, Helen. It's great working with you, and I really am speaking, this is a bit of a sort of personal, smaller scale type of activity that I'm going to be describing now. It feels a bit selfish, but we had quite a few moments of magic during lockdown, really on the back of an opportune conversation with Helen. I belong to a group of paintists in Bloxham, and a number of us have painted together or created together for years, and we've had the pleasure of being led by various different art tutors, and our latest one prior to lockdown moved away, and we decided we'd continue in a self-directed sort of way. But I think anybody here who's had the pleasure of being led by a good teacher knows how important that input is, and we gradually started sort of wilting on the vine a bit. And our numbers dwindled, and we went into lockdown without any sort of direction, except determined to continue to be creative in our own homes. So we set aside the same amount of time that we would normally paint and create together, and we formed a WhatsApp group, and we just sort of G'd each other along. So it was all very sort of low tech, and sometimes people said, well, I made a cake, and somebody said, well, I did the garden, but we felt we were being creative, and then we'd share the results of what we'd done in our little WhatsApp group. And we also sent pictures off to our former art tutor just to give her encouragement that we were still being creative, and the opportunity which led to this particular lockdown art group arose after a conversation with Helen, who was aware that I was scouting around for a replacement tutor, and she put me in touch with Abingdon and Whitney College, who have a community resource which we could tap into, and they were very happy to help support us through one of their tutors with whom they engage, who also has experience of working with lots of different groups of artists, and including in hospitals, and we were offered 6 weeks of courses with Grant, who's featured there in a rather jazzy shirt, and he produced a theme for us to work to each week, and I acted as the sort of coordinator, and got us all together, and eventually we had a little group of 8 of us, which was more than we had been able to muster together prior to lockdown, and we were all local, but because we were going to be operating on Teams, we could extend the invitation to a larger group and further afield than Banbury. So I mean, it's a Bloxham group basically, but we had a couple of members from Chipping Norton as well, and so we had the benefit of Grant's excellent tuition, and he took us through, you can see we're mostly working in acrylics here. He took us well outside our comfort zone. He helped us to think about painting things we wouldn't normally paint, like people in the rain and water, and even painting like an old master. And I think that we enjoyed his work so much, and he enjoyed teaching us, that we were able to take advantage of a second term, and then we even went into a third term. So we're at a point now where, as it happens, we are all about to meet for a coffee tomorrow because we can, and we are looking forward to seeing if we can either wangle another term of Grant's tuition or find ourselves another tutor. And I'm reminded actually that Activate Learning at Banbury College are providing community groups with tutors, and I think we might just see if they can provide us with an art tutor if Grant isn't available. That all sounds very selfish, but I think probably the learning is that it's possible to do what you enjoy doing despite not being together. However, we have agreed that in an ideal world we would like to sit side by side and compare notes and have a bit of a gossip, which you feel you can't really do if you're trying to be mindful that the teacher is working with you and trying to progress you. So we will probably look towards doing some kind of blended approach. If we can work together in our local parish rooms, we will, and if we can engage with somebody through Zoom, then I think we would like to explore that as an option as well. And I think probably the learning from this was that in order for this to happen, we're a group of people who we're all digitally engaged and literate. We could probably have gone out and sourced ourselves art classes individually, but actually this wasn't going to happen. It needed to be coordinated, and it needed somebody to liaise with the college and make it work. And I think probably if people are aware that there is a resource that they could tap into and make the college aware that there's a demand out there, then they can perhaps cause things to happen that might not otherwise have been possible. So that's my little bit.
Thank you, Bea. That's fantastic. And what an amazing standard of work. It's such a talented group. It's really, really great standard there. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was really useful. Thank you. So we're going to move on now to our next speaker, who is last but not by no means least. We've got Rosie. Are you there, Rosie? And you're going to talk about the Banbury Shed project, which I think sounds very interesting.
Thank you, Helen. Yes, I am here. Banbury Shed is a fantastic little project that is under the auspices of the oh gosh, I can't think of the name of it, RVS, Royal Voluntary Service in Banbury. And my husband is actually the chair of Banbury Shed, but he's busy. So I usually end up having to give the little chats about what they do at various locations, usually for Helen or for Bea. Banbury Shed, as you can see here, it's in a corner of Banbury People's Park, and it's the corner down by the bowling club. So that the railings are the bowling club, and then there's the long shed is just immediately behind the bowling club, and then you can see ahead of you the brand new, very fancy looking toilets and pavilion that has been built by Banbury Town Council. So I currently work with a very small smart energy consultancy in Banbury called Whatify with my husband, and I tend to work on the community development side of things because that's my background. And in fact, I've just got a new job from the 1st of December working for Community First Oxfordshire as a community development officer. So what we do with Whatify is we look after people who are vulnerable and low incomes and place shaping and things. And my husband was very interested in getting a Banbury Shed set up. And it's for anyone in the Banbury and surrounding area who is at risk of social isolation. Mostly they are men who come along, but one or two ladies do come along as well and are members there. And the age range is anything from late 20s to late 80s and above. If you're at risk of social isolation and you like doing things with your hands, then come along to Banbury Shed. Prior to the lockdown, Banbury Shed was held on alternate Saturday mornings in the Long Shed at People's Park. And now, since lockdown has lifted and they've finally started meeting back in person, they're actually meeting every Saturday morning down there from 9 till 12, 12:30. And anyone is welcome to just turn up. Just before lockdown, the committee that runs Shed had prepped to run a short course on the Internet of Everyday Things. and they'd received some funding for this, which they'd been told about mid-January, which had to be applied for by end of February and had to be spent by the beginning of April. So everything was sort of wheels to the grindstone. And what they did was they were just ready to run it, and lockdown happened. So what they did was various people on the committee, including my husband, cycled all around the whole area of Banbury and delivered little tiny boxes, which are incredible techie kits, to people. A lot of people didn't even have smartphones. They just had an ordinary phone, or they had a smartphone, didn't know how to use it. So there was quite a challenge as to how they could get people onto Zoom calls. So what they did was they trained people up and gave people coaching, and those who were able to use their smartphones for Zoom joined the Zoom, and those who just couldn't were telephoned and then had sort of one-to-one tutoring by people on the committee by telephone. And what they did, these kids are quite amazing. They had very technical instructions, which did have to be road tested, and my husband asked me to road test them, because although I'm very good with technology, I don't understand a lot of the terminology. And all the people writing these instructions were engineers, IT engineers, and so they'd write these instructions and I couldn't make head or tail of any of it. So they had to go through a lot of drafting, and one of the people who had written it said, "You do not easily unknow what you know and take for granted." So he had to learn that actually when you're saying to somebody who's never ever used the internet how you download software, for example, you have to literally go back to basics, and you have to say, type Google. You know, you have to explain what Google is, you have to explain what a search engine is, you have to explain what enter means and all this sort of stuff. What they got was about 15 people who ranged in tech ability from real experts, one of whom was my son, who's a very, very highly qualified engineer, and there was another chap who literally had an ordinary telephone and hadn't got a clue what was going on. And they used these little kits to program things. So they downloaded software, they programmed these kits, and these little kits, I don't understand any of it at all, but what they managed to do was, for example, if you had a string of fairy lights, you could program this box, plug the fairy lights into it, and it would do sequences of lights in different patterns. Or if you were playing music at the same time, these lights would alter depending on the music, depending on the rhythm or the tones or whatever. They also were able to do things like helping to switch smart appliances on and off, open and close curtains, turn lighting on and off, timers and that sort of thing. So it was a really fascinating project, and everybody stayed to the end. A couple of people have now joined Shed and have turned up in person. They did have a couple of people during the course of the Zooms. They would start off with an all group catch up, and then they would go into breakout rooms. And some of those breakout rooms were literally just somebody, as I say, on the telephone to someone individually, literally walking them through the printed instructions that had been delivered to them and explaining anything that didn't make sense. And a lot of kudos has to go to the very, very patient people who were trying to explain over the telephone things that really you need to be able to show people in person. But they also managed during the lockdown to have what they called a Shedinar every weekend, which was like a seminar on Zoom, and people would just turn up on the Shedinar and talk about something they were doing, talk about something that was interesting, and present that to people. And this has really brought people together. All the people who were on the Zooms were either shielding or were very socially isolated, and it kept them connected. And they did say that having that connection, just a couple of hours on a Saturday to just talk to somebody, even if it was just by telephone, having some personal contact, some human contact and some conversation was really, really good. So people are turning up at Shed now every week. You can find Banbury Shed on Facebook. And visitors and newcomers are very, very welcome. There's all sorts of tech and gadgets and enormous quantities of fabulous tools and equipment in there, and you can do pretty much anything, and there will be somebody there who will show you what to do or can teach you what to do, or you can just watch what other people are doing. We've also got some Syrian refugees who are there who have very little English, but there's a lovely worker who comes with them and she translates everything for them and back again, and several of them have really got involved with some projects. So Banbury Shared is a brilliant project. It's very well supported by RVS and the Town Council, and anyone who's interested, please do turn up and look at them on Facebook. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Rosie.